go on to the subject of extreme democracy. Not my words, as we shall see, but important here that this really demonstrates that small things by our viewers and supporters can have a big difference. So I was sent a letter which one of our viewers had received from the Alan Turing Institute. If we expand this, it said you could be one of 32 people selected to take part in a citizens panel on the subject of data and national security. And this panel will answer the important question: new technologies could change how national security agencies use people's data. What impact does this have on public attitudes, trust, and expectations around how their data is used? And the panel has been commissioned by the Centre for Emerging Technology and Security and is a research centre based at the Alan Turing Institute, the UK's National Institute for Data Science, and note artificial intelligence. Well, if we read a little bit more here, we're exploring this question now because new technologies could change how national security agencies use people's data. Intelligence and law enforcement agencies have investigatory powers which are used to protect people across the UK from a range of threats. This means they can use data in ways other government departments cannot, often by gathering people's information about their knowledge. It's important that this is balanced with respect for human rights, including the right to privacy. So this all sounds wonderful. This is another part of the document. If we just pop that one back on screen. This is frequently asked questions, and it says that the panel will follow an established democratic process used all over the world. Well, that's a very interesting statement because we're going to be digging into that a lot deeper. It brings together a group of people selected by lottery who broadly represent the entire community. I'm not feeling encouraged by this so far. It then goes on to talk about the Alan Turing Institute and the Centre for Emerging Technology again, but it also brings in an organisation called Hopkins Van Mill, is a specialist social research agencies. And finally here, the Sortition Foundation, a not-for-profit organisation that specialises in recruiting for these kinds of events. And of course, Ben Rubin has been talking about this, but that was brilliant information from one of our viewers. At the same time, in a conversation with Debbie, she mentioned this document. It's from Climate Assembly UK, The Path to Net Zero. Let's pop a little bit of extra information on the screen. And what it's doing is talking about random stratified sampling done by computer. And it says, once the deadline for responses had passed, the Sortition Foundation used random stratified sampling by computer to generate a list of 110 people to become assembly members. The computer selected no more than one person from any single household. And in blue, there's a comment supposedly by a member of the public who said they feel very, very privileged to take part in this. But of course, what you can see is unaccountable people selecting individuals using their algorithms and calling this democracy. So if we just move on a little bit, when I look at documents, I always go and look at the small print. And buried away in footnotes here was a particular gentleman. His name is Ariel Procaccia. And he's been working on this sort of material with his team at Harvard University and the Carnegie Mellon University. Let's have a little listen to this video, or watch this video clip to see what he's talking about.
So the topic of the talk is extreme democracy. And I want to start with a quote from Pia Mancini. She's an Argentinian kind of politician, a new kind of politician. She gave a very popular TED Talk a couple of years ago. And in this talk, she quoted Marshall McLuhan, who was a Canadian professor, as saying that politics is solving today's problems with yesterday's tools. And the point I want to make is kind of similar, which is that, the world has really changed in the last decades with modern technology, but the way we do democracy hasn't really fundamentally changed for centuries. So it seems like really a good time to rethink how we do democracy. In particular, the theme of the talk is that computer science has a lot to contribute to this discussion. So I want to argue that we should be thinking both about how we do democracy, the practice of democracy, and also the ways in which democracy can be applied. So trying to increase the reach of democracy by thinking about new applications domain through, you could call it democratic thinking and computational thinking. So I'm going to illustrate this theme through 3 projects that we've worked on recently. One is in the space of liquid democracy, which is a paradigm that allows voters to delegate their votes, and these delegations are transitive. The second is going to be participatory budgeting, which is the idea that a city can allocate its budget by eliciting preferences from its residents and aggregating them to get a budget. The third part, I call it virtual democracy. It's a term that I came up with for the purposes of this talk. But the idea is that we'll make decisions by having a virtual election among machine learning models of real voters. And I'll show you how we want to use this approach in order to make ethical decisions in AI. So this is where liquid democracy comes in. You could say that it's a paradigm that lies between direct democracy and representative democracy. And the idea is that as a voter, I can either vote myself directly, or if I feel that I don't have the time, that I don't have the information, I can choose to delegate my vote to another voter. And like I said before, delegations are transitive in the sense that if A delegates to B and B delegates to C, C would be able to vote on behalf of both A and B.
So not to worry, extreme democracy, liquid democracy, these people have created it. They are completely unaccountable. Their computer algorithms are completely unaccountable, but trust them, they're going to be selecting us to give them the decision that they wanted in the first